Hi, and welcome to our podcast today, Break Free and Thrive. I am so thrilled to have our guest today, Kelly Fisher. I've known Kelly for probably about 18 months or so, and Kelly has a long history in the hypnotherapist industry. He's a certified clinical hypnotherapist and life coach, and I'd like to share some of his background with you because he's been teaching meditation and hypnotherapy for the past 22 years and has had significant success with that. Kelly is located in Las Vegas. He teaches his programs from stage. He's designed meditation classes for gyms both in Los Angeles and Las Vegas. And he's also on a local radio station in Las Vegas teaching his programs. He's an author. He's got a couple of books out, Weight Loss from the Inside Out and A Mind and Body Awakening. And he's also a co-author in the #1 Amazon bestseller with world famous Wim Hof, the Iceman, called Wake Up, A Guide to Living a Healthy, Vibrant Life. And the list goes on, and it's a significant list. I would like to add, he's recently been hired to the Silver State Pain Management Clinic that's in Las Vegas, and he's their resident life coach. One of his most recent accolades is that he's helped Vietnam veterans with over 47 years of suffering PTSD and violent flashbacks, and they are finally able to sleep through the night with his custom-guided visualization programs. And he designed those programs for those 2 Vietnam veterans. He also has a number of online teaching programs. Those are dealing with anxiety solution and falling asleep instantly. I want to keep everyone awake here. But he's also has been in practice for 22 years. His private practice has helped people overcome fear of flying, quit smoking, passing important tests, famous songwriters being able to create again, getting over needle phobia, losing weight, stopping nail biting, fear of public speaking, and I have to say the list goes on and on. He has a study of metaphysics, quantum physics, and knows the science of exactly how the brain functions and the mind works. So this truly sets him apart as a leading edge teacher and educator. And today I am so pleased that Kelly's going to be talking to us about one of the things that we all face, and that is, yes, we're facing challenges of embracing change, but we're also facing that journey within on how we heal. And that is the expertise that Kelly provides because, let's face it, any change is challenging, it's scary, you don't want to do it alone. And there are some things that are more pervasive because we have these feelings of fear, feelings of anxiety, sometimes it's guilt and shame. And Kelly is the person to refer to when you've got some of those challenges that you're facing. So today, I actually am really pleased that Kelly is going to be addressing a topic that I didn't really realize was as pervasive as it is, and that is infidelity. I've talked to many women, divorced and single, married as well, that are finding that they're having some challenges in their relationships. I know that the divorce rate is, I'm going to say it's going through the roof. It's at, the 40 to 50% mark. And I know that Kelly has some solutions, and I really would like to jump into the process that you've developed, the study that you've done, because this is not a new practice for you. This is something that you have been facing for probably many years. So welcome, Kelly, and thank you so much for sharing your new practice with us.
Well, thank you, Karen. Thank you for having me here. And anytime we can get together and uplift and heal the masses, I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Sure. So you have developed this process, and this process is I love the name of it. The name is H.A.R.P. And for me, I'd like you to share how you developed this process called H.A.R.P, because I think it touches on each of the aspects that, people deal with in grieving, but also going through other challenges in their life.
Yeah, absolutely. H.A.R.P is over the years working with so many women that I just see them going through the exact same. I developed H.A.R.P as, I call it, the 5 stages of infidelity, because they go through these first 3 stages. The H.A.R., the very first ones, are hurt, anger, and revenge. And it's very similar to the stages of loss that you go through, but you bounce back and forth, because when you first get the news of infidelity, that fight or flight just kicks in, and automatically it's hurt. How can this happen? How could they do this to me? How could, you just start questioning yourself. And when this happens, the fight or flight kicks in, and you feel like fight or flight means A or B. You only have a couple choices, and everything starts closing in on you. That's when the anger starts. And obviously I have a couple clients that got to the revenge part, and they went out and cheated, and that just messes everything up even more. So your circle starts to close in as soon as you get triggered with this information.
Okay, and as a result of that, you've actually seen clients that you've had, that you've brought them through these first 3 stages, and they've had awakenings. And those awakenings are because they've dealt with feelings that were deeply embedded in them. And it may have been something, the infidelity may have risen to the surface, but there were also maybe some prior hurt, anger, and revenge that they felt earlier in life as well. Can you tell us a little about that?
Well, yeah, that definitely plays a part. I mean, if you've seen your parents growing up cheat on each other or divorce, there's all kinds of subliminal programs that could very well have triggered what you're going through as an adult. When we go through those first 3 stages, like I said, you bounce back and forth, which is normal. They have to understand that also, because they feel like, oh my God, I'm back at hurt again. I was angry, and that's normal. And what I like to say is I give them a nice soft place to land, meaning that reconnection part. When we reconnect with their higher source and who they are, why they came here. And it almost seems like when we're working together, like that's completely separate of going through infidelity, but that's a grounding point I give them. So when these other 3 flare up again, we have that grounding point of that reconnection. Then when they get whole again, we could pivot on the last point. And when you pivot as a new whole person, you have the choice of either I'm going to stay with this person and work it out, or I'm going to move on with my life. But you do it from a conscious, whole, back to who you are person. That's how you get through the whole H.A.R.P system.
Well, and you do this as, obviously, you're in a safe place, but each session that you have with the client, would you be dealing with hurt and anger in the same session, or focusing on the hurt and then progressing to the anger? Or you may be dealing with those 3, hurt, anger, and revenge, all in a particular session. And then when you see them the next time, they may have additional things that they want to focus on, addressing still those same 3.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, they bounce back and forth, and as soon as the client comes in, I know if they're in the anger stage, if they're raging and they're mad. It's the anger. That's when I help them heal without guilt or blame. I mean, they get a lot of self-guilt because, oh my God, it's my fault, this happened, and then they start to blame others. Again, this is another process you go through. So depending on where they're at when they physically come in. And the good part about it is every session I do hypnosis with them, meaning I listen to them, I see where they're at, and then I give them, through hypnosis, I give them a visualization of the next step of where they're going. So that's something they can't do on their own, because when your conscious mind is out of control with that fight or flight, you can't think future thoughts. You can't think, oh my God, how am I going to get out of this? So I settle them down, I relax them physically and mentally. I take them through a deep visualization of exactly where they want to go. And then by the next week they come in, I let them listen to that recording the whole week, so they keep reinforcing it. So when they come back in the next week, we're just that much ahead moving forward in the system.
Okay. So as a result of listening to that recording every day until their next session, are there other things that you're asking them to do? Maybe you're asking them to keep a diary, or check in and find out how the conversations are going, or maybe something else totally different.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have like check-in sessions I have with my clients. If they get so overloaded, they have to call me and just, I could settle them down and recenter them. So I offer that during the week. And also I tell them there's the conscious part of the world you're going into, and then the subconscious, meaning the subconscious, I can control, I can reprogram you and give you new visualizations. But when you're out back in the system and the conscious mind is back in control and you're back to your husband or whoever hurt you, if you're still in that situation, it's going to trigger up things. So I give them, as soon as that situation happens, when they're in the conscious part, I give them a trigger that while we're in hypnosis, that as soon as they say that thing to you, you automatically take a deep breath and you're back to where we are here. So I give them little triggers to go through the week to help them move through while they're back in their situation still.
Okay. And I think that's really helpful because it's not like they feel that, okay, I'm out of your office and now I have to figure this out on my own. You're with them all week long, every day. And that's really good. And they get to listen to that recording as often as they need it. And it brings them to that safe place that they've had with you when you were together.
Yeah, like I said, it almost feels like the reconnecting part, it almost feels like a distraction at first. In a way it is, because, you got to remember who you are and why you're here. One of my last clients, you saw I sent you the testimonial of Rico, where she, before she met her husband, she came here in this country and she was doing volunteer work, and it was her mission and it was the happiest time in her life. And I reconnected her to that. So every time she had a flash of, oh my God, what he did, what I did, she remembered why she's here, and that connection that we did in the office. And it helped her through everything.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that's really important thing, because unless you have a frame of reference, it's like, what's my expectation? Do I want to stay or do I want to leave? But it's, what is my life like? What do I want from this? And it's the relationship is one piece of it, but it's the rest of my life is the other part that we need to be able to reconnect with, to heal with.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I call it a zooming out process. I work with all my clients. I zoom them out to get an overview of what's going on, so they don't have to be stuck in that one of these fight or flights systems here.
Okay. And that pivot piece, pivoting is like going back into their reality. So you're not dealing with all of the triggers that you have. Okay.
Right. When we healed most of the triggers and we're reconnected, that pivoting, I like to physically give them a visual of, you're sitting here, you're turning forward and you're moving on to a new life because you're whole again. And like I said, if you choose to reconnect and rekindle that relationship, because you're doing it from a conscious point of centered, loving healing, it's a big difference than trying to piece it together where you still got anger and rage popping up constantly,
So you can also apply these principles to other hurts in your life. So it's even if you have unfortunately suffered from infidelity, once you've gone through this process and you've had another hurt in your life, you can go back to hurt, anger, revenge, so that it's something that perpetually you can refer to. You're providing a mechanism going forward for people.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the other testimonial I sent you of Lior, it wasn't specifically infidelity, but it was seriously like 20 some years of mental abuse, of just a mental cage that her husband put her in that she didn't find any way out. And me giving her power back to her was just, she said like, wow, like my kids see me smiling again. Like I'm a new person. And nobody gave her the permission to take that power back because she was under such a mental trap from the relationship. So that was her healing part. Okay.
And everyone goes through these steps. It's not like you can turn around and say, oh, well, I'm just going to skip over and go to reconnection and pivot, because that healing that needs to be done won't happen and you won't be able to move forward. Correct?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, it's the conscious mind completely overloaded when you're going through those first three stages. And without meditation, without hypnosis to dig down into the subconscious mind, it's so difficult to get over them, because that fight or flight just keeps going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
And I can see that there are a number of women that I also speak with. And when they're in a relationship and they're, not comfortable and they're feeling challenged, this is actually something that can help them as well, because sometimes there are triggers that we have, and those triggers are, I don't know that I can stay here anymore. I've been so hurt. And those are some of the things that you continually are able to help someone with these 5 steps. I think they're so critical.
yeah, like you mentioned before, maybe someone's in a new relationship and these stages are popping up, meaning, they're angry still about their last relationship. When people get hurt in love, it's natural to close that off. I'm never going to be in love again. I'm never going to open up and be that vulnerable again. And it's scary. And it's when you go to open up to a new relationship, that those old triggers come up again, that I've been hurt before. I'm not going to open up. So it's a whole different stage to work through,
We're just on an ongoing work in progress evolution.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I said, if you're still breathing oxygen, you're still in process.
I like that a lot. So if people would like to connect with, but I do want to provide information so that people can connect with you. The other thing I did want to talk about was working with folks that were suffering from PTSD.
Sure.
And I think that's a process that there are, again, some triggers that they go through. And do those triggers also relate to having gone through a hurt or anger and revenge, and then going through a reconnecting to what your life is?
Yeah, it's a little different system. I mean, usually the PTSD is such a powerful trigger that a lot of times we don't address that trigger directly. We address when the triggers come up and how to move through them. I had a client that he was working in the community, with other families and churches, and he'd be out in the system and he'd hear a loud bang, and all of a sudden he'd be triggered. He'd be so mad and enraged. And so we would work on anytime he heard a loud noise, then he automatically, this is your new trigger. This is your deep breath. This is your new focus. So a lot of times we don't want to attack the triggers directly if they're that dramatic. Usually the PTSD is so dramatic that we reframe it to give them new triggers to move through. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Instead of erasing the old ones.
Okay. So the thing I wanted to ask there is that also where there's a program, a recording that they would listen to on a daily basis to kind of reframe so that they're able to deal with these triggers that they have on a daily basis?
Yeah, absolutely. When I work with clients, I literally go into my studio and I record custom guided visualizations, meditations for them with their name on it, with their problem on it. So I usually give them, like specifically with the gentleman with the PTSD, I gave him a meditation to listen to during the day when he thought he was going to feel triggered. He knew what time of day was bothering him. And then I gave him a separate meditation just for sleep. So he put it on right before he went to sleep. And he said it was the first time he slept through the night in 47 years, which was amazing. So whatever they're specifically going through, I will sit and record exactly what they need. So they got the session with us, one-on-one, and then I'll record custom ones they could listen to also. So depending on where they're at, and it's a whole moving system as we try to, get back in control of our thought process in our life.
Mm-hmm. Actually, when you said that about having the 2 different therapies for the person to listen to and being able to sleep for the first, it brought tears to my eyes.
Oh, yeah.
That is so powerful. There are so many women that also don't sleep through the night, and whether they're suffering from PTSD or whether they just have, fear and anxiety and not able to, have a good night's sleep. Doesn't that also tie back to the internal healing process that they have to go through?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The sleep part of it is just, what you're worried about during the day and you're overloaded with, it's going to come up at night even louder because it's quiet at night. Your mind gets louder. And if you're stuck in that fight or flight, now the heart rate's slightly elevated. And that's why it's so hard to let go at night. So it's a whole process. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am familiar with, and it's kind of funny because I've had conversations with friends and they, tell me that they are waking up in the middle of the night and they say to me, well, do you wake up in the middle of the night? And I was like, no, I can't say that I have in a long, long time. And they're like, what do you do? And I was just like, I don't know. That's not an issue for me, but it is for a lot of women. And I'm just kind of surprised that so many people don't know what to do about it.
Right.
And that's part of the reason I want them to connect with you so that they can sleep as well.
Yeah, a lot of the clients I work with, I say, well, I wake up in the middle of the night. I say, what do you do? I turn on the TV. I'm like, extra stimulus. I turn on the lights, extra stimulus. I go downstairs and get on the computer, extra stimulus. I'm like, you don't need extra stimulus. I know it feels like that's what you might as well do because you're up, but it's the opposite. So actually my fall asleep program, and I have one online for sale, but I make custom ones for people, like I said. But you're going to go through this. You're going to go through this process at night where you're going to, think about the day you went through, think about the next day, and these steps you go through. So I just combined them. I said, well, if you're going to lay there, instead of doing like 2 hours of this, let's do it very concise. Let's think about 2 things that went right today, 2 things that are going to go right tomorrow, and then give it up to your higher source. I tell them, if it's God, your higher, whatever you call it, you give it up, meaning here is what I did for the day. Here's what I'm doing tomorrow. And now I'm going to relax. And then I teach them how to shut their body off. So you usually go through this process anyway. So I condensed it. So it's like, let's not do 3 hours of this and think about everything that happened. Let's make this short and sweet. So
I like giving it up to your higher source. I like that a lot because you know what? They need it a lot more than you do.
That's it. I did my best today. It's all yours now.
Exactly. And you know what to do with it.
Yeah, I'm going to sleep. I'm done.
Okay. So if people would like to get in touch with you as far as working with you,
sure.
What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, specifically for the infidelity, I have stagesofinfidelity.com. There's a free ebook where I explain in more detail the H.A.R.P system and how to work through it. And then they could always reach out to me through globalmindstretch@gmail.com is my email. So
Okay.
they can reach out to me if they're interested in, anxiety or the other programs I have.
Okay. So, and I'm going to make both of those links available below the podcast so that people can tap into that. You've also provided to me some of the other programs that you have. I don't know if you want to talk about those or not. The online Fall Asleep Instantly program, that's available through the fallasleepinstantly.com. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Sure. Yeah. Like I said, work with so many clients, I put fall asleep in. Actually, when I was promoting the bestanxietysolution.com. I have a 6-week online anxiety solution program where there's 6 modules for each week, and there's 3 or 4 videos in each module. And then there's a meditation to listen to twice a day. And it's a very powerful program. It's 6 weeks to understand how your mind works and get over anxiety and exactly what anxiety is. And when I was out promoting that program, a lot of people said, well, if you had something to help, I would buy that. I'm like, okay, let's do that. So I put together fallasleepinstantly.com because, like I said, I have this system where, and if they went to the website, fallasleepinstantly.com, there's a free PDF, 7-8 pages of exactly how the system works. And then if they want to get the meditation, they can order that. But so I give them, I let them know exactly how it works so they can try to practice it on their own. And anxiety, falling asleep, PTSD, H.A.R.P, it's all about getting in control of your mind. My motto is slow your mind down to the speed you're living. Once you slow everything down to the now and get control of it, you're in control of all of it. It's just people are coming from different angles, from anxiety, from infidelity, from sleep, but it's all about slowing that mind down.
So it's just having way too much going on in your head and calming the mind and the hypnotherapy, the meditation is actually what calms it down and kind of gets rid of what's not important.
Absolutely. Yeah, I call it the roof chatter, that yip yip dog that just doesn't shut up, that just keeps going. People actually think they are that conscious thought running through their head, and they're not. Once you let that go and realize, hey, I'm this thinker behind that thought, I don't want to get too metaphysical, but once you step outside of that conscious racing thought, when you have little gaps in them from your meditation practice, you realize, wait a second, I have a choice to think that or not. It's a very interesting process. Watch people go through.
I have to share just a moment, because I always thought when you went through this meditation, there'd be this like gap. And what am I going to do in the gap?
Yes.
And when I got rid of all of the chatter, it was just like, oh, the world just opened up, and it was so beautiful. I couldn't believe it.
To step outside that rough chatter in your head is that's so powerful. And like I said, you realize that you have most people don't know they have a choice of what thoughts to think. They just come through and they ride that thought. And once you step back, I call it zooming out. You go watch thoughts go by. You learn how to respond to life instead of just react, instead of knee-jerk react. You have a choice now. Very powerful.
And sometimes people think having choices are overwhelming. But I think when you get rid of all of the noise, it's the best choices that come forward.
Yes, much different choices, much better choices, exactly.
And they kind of make you feel really good and yummy.
yeah, that fight or flight is just A or B. That's not a good selection to choose from. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah. And I can say, seeing all of the different programs that you've developed, but also just having the conversation with you and listening to how you've helped people with those triggers, how you've helped people calm all of the chatter in their head, makes such a huge difference, because you're pushing away and getting rid of all that doesn't matter.
Right. Chipping away the BS on top of who you really are. It's funny because I'm in control of my thoughts. I'm always now. And sometimes there's a misconception that I don't feel because I don't overreact to things. I said, oh, no, I feel everything. I choose which thought to follow. I feel more than anybody because I'm wide awake. But I choose okay, it's like somebody was talking about, there's a sad song come on the radio. Are you going to listen to the first two notes and change it because you know what path you're going to go down to? Like a small example of, I know that song's going to make me sad. I'm going to cry. Well, do you want to? Don't do that. It's a small example of bigger things in your life that come up that, oh my God, it's infidelity or it's this. Do I want to follow that angry thought again? You start to realize, wait a second, I could follow that thought and feel horrible down the end of that road, or I could zoom out. I call it a fork in the road technique, where you start over wait a second, I have a choice which way to think, which way to go. So you really get in control of it all, but it's not a control where you don't feel. It's the opposite. You feel everything. You just choose which path to go down. Big difference.
Absolutely. And that actually is one of the things that I think is so miraculous in this process, because no one wants to go through infidelity. No one wants to go through pain and suffering. But when you have a technique that helps you process those feelings and you're able to learn from them, but learning from them, you have a richer, more beautiful experience going forward, because you get rid of all of the stuff that really is painful, and you're able to come on top of that. And that's what all of the connecting and pivoting is about.
Yeah. And I tell people, and your listeners also, that you have to separate when you're in these stages. You have to learn to separate what you're in control of and what you're not in control of. And the things you're not in control of, people want to fight. Well, I'm right. I said, we want to be happy, or do you want to be right? Because, okay, your example of that I'm angry at that person. You're angry at them because you wouldn't have treated someone that way. You wouldn't have done that. And give yourself the credit that you're trying to get from that person. They're not going to give you that credit that you're looking for. So there's certain aspects of this healing process that you really have to, the parts you're not in control of, you have to let go. You have to let go. You have to understand why you're so angry and what you're trying to get out of that. And you have to let that part go and get back in control of what you are in control of.
And that is what all Break Free and Thrive is about. It's about getting rid of all of those things, the chains that you hold. And once you're able to work through that, you can really create just a thriving life where you're in control, and you create what you want, what you desire.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I shot a YouTube video not so long ago. I called it 3 minutes to be angry. So, this is more simple stuff than what we're talking about. But I said, somebody wrongs you, or they don't show up for lunch, or they do something to disrespect you, go through like, okay, like I said, I wouldn't have done that to them. I treat people better than that. Just give yourself credit. You're not going to get it from them. So don't, like, a week later, like, oh, I'm still mad at that person for, no. They moved on. You got to, these are small things to teach people to move on from, but it's the same concept with the bigger ones. The bigger ones are just so much more overwhelming,
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Kelly. I really appreciate this time today. It's been so valuable. If people are wanting to connect with you, they can go to stagesofinfidelity.com. They can reach out and receive your free ebook, which is on how to move through the stages of infidelity. I think it's a valuable tool, and I would direct everyone to pick up the ebook. And to connect with you. If someone wants to send an email, they can send an email to globalmindstretch@gmail.com, and I'll provide that information at the bottom. Thank you so much, Kelly, and I am so honored that you're here today.
Thank you for having me, Karen. Appreciate it. Thank you.